Dan Rubenstein, the Heisman Trophy officially in the hands of Jayden Daniels. We've got a new proposal, a big one from NCAA President Charlie Baker. We've also got transfer portal news, coaching news, opt-out news, bowl season getting big in the window. Get to playwinterwonders.com to get in our bowl pool before it is too late. A lot to discuss on today's edition of the podcast, sir. How goes it?
It's good. It depends how close we are now to getting Taylor Swift in our bowl pool as a celebrity picker now that she is in the football universe. Are we getting closer?
Marginally.
Okay. Look, she's from where you're from, Ty. Come on. This is on you.
I'm trying to work the back channels to get as many people in this bowl pool as I can. Playwinterwonders.com. If you didn't have a chance to go back and listen to the last episode that we did, going out to our website, solidverbal.com. You could, of course, find it in any podcasting app of choice. You could, of course, find it out on YouTube. We did an hour-and-a-half primer. Both of our voices were fried at the end of it. An hour-and-a-half primer took you through every bowl game. We didn't get all the opt-outs right because, of course, the opt-outs are still developing. We'll talk through in a little bit more detail a little bit later on in the show some new names that we can add to those lists. But get in on the bowl pool, top 11, get prizes, free to play, invite your friends, your family, your coworkers, your entire text thread. Playwinterwonders.com. Biggest, the best bowl pool on the internet. There, I said my piece.
You said your piece. You did a great job. Where in the news world do you want to start? Do you want to start with the Heisman? Since that, we're recording it about 48 hours after. A lot of people, including what I think we're going to do, is turn our attention to 2024 as well with early Heisman discussion. Do you want to talk portal? Do you want to talk coaching news? It's Ty Wild.
It is Ty Wild. Let's do it. It's not so breaking at this point, Dan, but nonetheless, Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is your Heisman Trophy winner. Interestingly enough, this was the closest Heisman Trophy race since 2018 when Kyler Murray edged out Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah.
So Jayden Daniels becomes the third quarterback from LSU, third player from LSU to win the Heisman. The second quarterback, the last quarterback, was Joe Burrow back in 2019.
Yeah.
He edged out Michael Penix Jr., and it was close.
Yeah.
2,029 points for Jayden Daniels, 1,701 point for Michael Penix Jr. Jayden Daniels won mostly on the back of 503 first place votes. It went Jayden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and Marvin Harrison Jr. as the top four, followed in relatively close succession by Jordan Travis, who was number 5. You could argue Jordan Travis maybe should have been first.
MVP,
given the way that the committee treated his injury. Jalen Milroe was in the top 10 at number 6, Ollie Gordon Jr., Cody Schrader, Blake Corum at 9, and J.J. McCarthy all the way down at number 10. So look, I don't think this was a huge surprise for anybody who's been listening to the show, really for anybody who's been watching college football. The Heisman Trophy race was a bit muddied, if only by virtue of teams losing, by some of the results that we saw. So no one's really going to throw a fit with Jayden Daniels getting this award. We kind of expected it. Any surprises here, though, as you look at this top 10?
No, because as soon as we got... I was surprised Michael Penix leapt Bo Nix, but not surprised at the appreciation for Michael Penix's excellence this year. It's it goes without saying almost. No, the big thing I learned from this year's Heisman Trophy, it's one of the unique years, one of the rare years where there was nobody in my mind who was undeniable. That you could poke holes in Jayden Daniels' candidacy just because of LSU's final record. Of course, those 3 losses don't seem like they're on him. He didn't have a great second half against Florida State. And by the way, had Jayden Daniels and the LSU Tigers beaten Florida State, we would not have been in the situation that we found ourselves in after conference championship Saturday with regards to Florida State and Alabama in the playoff.
That's right.
But yes, having a quarterback on a team that lost 3 games, didn't really compete for anything big at the end of the year, it seems more and more rare these days. Michael Penix was the quarterback for the Pac-12, an undefeated Pac-12 championship team who played his best in Washington's biggest games, which I think there's certainly something to be said for that. Bo Nix was great. The big thing to me, which surprised me a little bit about Michael Penix, is that he wasn't consistently great. He had lower lows than some of the other players he was compared against. Like Jayden Daniels was great every week. Bo Nix was great even in losing efforts. Bo Nix was great. He wasn't strong in that first half against Washington, but I don't think you can look at that game and say, well, if Bo Nix had performed better for 4 quarters, Oregon wins that. Like, I think that game was more on the defense and more on just Washington being so strong and able to rise to that moment in a better way than Oregon could. So that surprised me a little, because you look at the Arizona State game, you look at some of the lower moments in terms of accuracy that, like, Michael Penix would come up big in a win, but also there were times where he needed to because of his own and the offense's own inconsistent play. But it's nitpicking. And so that to me was interesting. Next year is interesting because you can look at Jalen Milroe, you can look at whoever ends up at quarterback for Ohio State, Ollie Gordon you mentioned already. Like, we'll see with Dylan Gabriel. We'll get there with Oregon. Obviously, he's going to be surrounded by a good amount for the Ducks as they enter the Big Ten. There's a number of fascinating candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about the Heisman Trophy. I'll be honest with you.
Right.
I'm not into it. I've never been into it. That's maybe one of the few things I've been consistent about over the full duration of this show.
Yeah.
I don't care about individual awards. I never have. The Heisman Trophy in particular, I think, has been less interesting to me as of late because most of these have been runaway trains. You knew going in who was going to win. I never got the suspense of it. Just didn't do it for me. This one at least was more interesting because it did seem like it was close. I mean, I never really expected Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to be much for this award with respect to the final balloting. He obviously is a premier talent in college football, deserved to be in New York, deserves really whatever accolades they want to throw his way. I have no problem with that. But
right.
The Jayden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix thing, you could make a really good case for all 3 of those guys, and I'd be perfectly fine with it. All 3 of them got a considerable amount of first place votes. Obviously, Jayden Daniels with the most, Michael Penix Jr. with the second most, Bo Nix with the third most, et cetera, et cetera. But that to me at least made this a little bit more interesting. I'm more curious to see where these guys go in the NFL. And that's not usually my beat. It never will be my beat. But this figures to be a really, really interesting quarterback class. And depending on how you feel about either of these guys, you can make a case for any of them as the 3rd quarterback off the board, presumably behind Caleb Williams and Drake May.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Drake May goes pro. I can make a case for all 3 of these guys, and we won't get more info on that until they do the combine and the scouts get their fair share of all of them. But that to me is, I think, the next storyline of what I'm actually going to be more interested in than I usually am, because it's just such a loaded class this year, and it makes it kind of cool.
Yeah, the interesting thing is some of the quarterbacks you mentioned, highlighted by Jayden Daniels, is it was a year, Jayden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, in which 3 of the premier national quarterbacks probably on a certain level felt like they had to put up 50 points a game to overcome their own team's defense. And
right.
Only Jayden Daniels rose to that occasion pretty often and was sort of unimpeachably great in that he probably felt that at times and 95% of the time came through. And I heard, I think it was Dan Orlovsky on maybe the Dan Patrick Show talking about this with Caleb Williams. Like, you can't fully fault him for some of his more down moments and trying to make, miracles happen on every play, because he kind of thought he had to, rightfully so, because of the USC defense, which I guess we can get into momentarily with some of their hires. But same goes for Drake May back half of the year, where, the receiver talent was there, especially when they got Tez Walker back. But that there had to be a certain burden, a certain amount of pressure on these guys. Be like, I can't just sort of run an ordinary offense and march down the field methodically. We need to score. We need to get this going. We need to score quickly, guys.
No.
And so fascinating that Jayden Daniels was able to make it work and come away with the Heisman. Well-deserved.
Well-deserved, Jayden Daniels. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to LSU. Before we get into some of those moves that you have been hinting at, there was a rather significant development on the NCAA front. Now, look, I'll play this.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
I'll play the Dumb and Dumber sound. I like to play that anytime we talk about all things NCAA. But here is where things stand, okay? I don't want people's eyes to glaze over when we start talking policy, especially after a long college football season in which many of us are jaded. Yourself included, myself included. It's been a long season. We don't like to turn people off generally this early in the show. about 10 minutes in or so. But this is significant, and it's just something to watch, and it's something that I think people should care about. The lay of the land is this, and you know this, Dan. We bring on Matt Brown, our good friend Matt Brown of the Extra Points newsletter. We bring him on a couple times a year to talk about where things are going from a business standpoint in college football and NIL and the courts and that type of thing. And, of course, to talk about EA Sports, NCAA college football, the next version of it, which is coming out in July. I talked to Matt this past week. We're going to have Matt on at some point soon to kind of get into all of that. But Matt, this is his beat. And so I kind of rely on him and what he has to say. At the risk of oversimplifying the lay of the land with respect to all things NCAA, the gist of what Matt has been saying for 2 years now is, one, the powers that be, Congress, the courts, whoever, if they decide that players are employees, that essentially nukes everything that we know in college football. It nukes the whole system. The whole system goes completely, we got to start over. And two, the NCAA would really like some legal protections from Congress to shield them from any sort of lawsuits that might come up, because it's a brave new world, right? It's players are getting money off of their likeness. There's just a lot that could go wrong for the NCAA. They've got a lot of legal exposure. And so ultimately, you may recall, like a year ago, when they decided that they were going to name a former governor, Charlie Baker, as the new president of the NCAA, ultimately they were doing that because they knew that the next battlefield for them was going to be in the political arena. They were going to need to try and lobby Congress. They were going to try, in order to get some of those protections, that's what they needed to do next. And so that's why Charlie Baker is there.
Yeah.
Charlie Baker put forth a rather revolutionary proposal. Ross Dellinger, our friend from Yahoo Sports, coined it as, quote, perhaps the single most revolutionary concept ever introduced by a sitting NCAA leader in college athletics history, end quote. And I don't think he's exaggerating. This is a pretty big deal. So the proposal would essentially create a new college football subdivision. And within, it would grant whatever schools opted in the ability to strike NIL deals directly with their own athletes. And so this is a framework that would, in effect, allow schools to directly compensate athletes via a trust fund. There would be a minimum. So you couldn't go like full Oakland A's and just not spend anything.
What was it, 30 grand a player?
Every school that would participate would owe $30,000 per year per athlete. Interestingly, there would be no maximum. So there's a floor, but there's not a ceiling, which makes things interesting depending on how serious you want to get about football.
Yeah. Have you capped your salary ceiling via Solid Purple Media? Are you good with an open-ended situation?
I'm fine with an open-ended situation.
Okay, good. Just making sure.
Totally fine with that.
Yeah.
The schools in the new subdivision would also get some enhanced decision-making over things like scholarship limits, how many coaches can count against their budget, that type of thing. This is intended, and this is from Matt Brown, this isn't from me, this is intended as a conversation starter. So nobody's expecting that they're going to vote on this thing, that they're going to put it into the official rule book anytime soon. They're just trying to get things started because the NCAA sees the writing on the wall. They know that there have been court rulings that have gone against them. They know that the National Labor Relations Board is out here strongly implying, if not ultimately saying, that college athletes are employees of universities. The NCAA is smart enough to recognize that there is a lot coming at them, and they're trying to get out ahead of it by showing some flexibility, by at least being willing to give athletes a greater share of the revenue, a greater slice of the pie. But this is significant, Dan. This is significant. It is the kind of thing that, if it goes through, it has a huge impact on college football, to say the least. I saw some people were joking about, like, what do we call the new subdivision? Do we call it Division Zero? Like, what is the new name for this?
It'll be a fancy way of saying haves and have-nots. Yeah.
That is essentially what this is.
Yeah.
That is where we're at. The way that Matt coined it in, again, the Extra Points newsletter, which you should go out and subscribe to, he said that it is basically an olive branch to lawmakers, that the NCAA, by showing their willingness here to give some flexibility, is trying to trade that for legal protection.
Right.
They're trying to trade that for legal protection. They're not saying revenue sharing. They're not saying that players are employees, but They're trying to extend something of an olive branch to lawmakers, to the National Labor Relations Board, to the courts, to whoever is willing to accept it, because all of those entities could throw this whole thing into a blender if they decide to rule that players are employees.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to pay attention to, because that means there are going to be a lot of big decisions made by a lot of big institutions about whether they want to be in that business or they don't want to be in that business. And then a lot of numbers are going to have to be run. But we've reached the point now that, the TV contracts are very public, that the numbers being thrown are very large. And I think, look, in all fairness to a lot of these athletic departments, if you want to be a school that is in the business of sports, it is very expensive, and the money needs to come from somewhere. But on the other side of things, especially college football, more than any other sport, it brings a lot of money, and then it brings a lot of, I don't know what the right term is here, but like secondary money, right? The attention that a school gets for enrollment, for marketing, for donations, for, general enthusiasm, even for people who aren't donating to a football or athletic department or whatever, that there's just going to be a lot of enthusiasm around your school because of the visibility, especially of a quality, if not excellent, football program. And so there's dollars that are a direct benefit from football and dollars that are sort of indirect benefit that come in, and you can look at all of the endowments for all of these schools and all of, the growing campuses and buildings, and it just attracts, everything stems from a lot of these places by how public these schools are. And a good chunk of that is college athletics and football. So you understand, even Jim Harbaugh, right? In his post-playoff interview, I want to say, when Michigan, he was like, and I'm paraphrasing here, let's not forget who is doing all of this work. It's the players. They deserve a cut of the revenue that all of this is bringing in.
Yeah, and that was welcomed with open arms, I think, by a lot of people who are, and not just people like you and me, but people who are actually in college football who care about these issues and have the wherewithal to see that it's getting big in the window as well.
Yeah.
These issues are coming at the NCAA. They're coming at college sports, especially because the money is so public. I think, to your point, it is not a question of who can afford it. All of them can afford it. All of the programs that we know in the Power Five can afford it. That's from Matt. That's not from me crunching numbers. Matt says everybody can afford it. Matt says that on top of that, there are probably 24, if not more, programs outside of the Power Five that could also afford this, the minimum. Could hit these minimum thresholds in order to be part of this new thing if it were ever to come into existence. The question from his end and from your end and from a lot of these aspects, who wants to?
Right.
Who wants to be in this business of college football? It is not so much a new expense that will be incurred by any of these athletic programs. In reality, what would happen, it would be just shifting around existing expenses. And so things like coaching salaries might be affected, things like support services that are thrown in on top of a scholarship to like support the football team, those types of things that are given maybe in lieu of a salary.
Well, you're also going to have to hire more people, aren't you? If you're an athletic, one of these big athletic departments to manage everything. Yeah.
It would sort of be up to you, right? How you want to allocate your budget. But, it certainly is the kind of thing where programs would not necessarily have to take on new expenses. They would just have to be smarter about how they use their existing budget and that sort of thing. What it does do is it puts NIL collectives on notice.
Right.
And this type of thing wrestles control away from a lot of the outside entities, maybe not all of them, but it wrestles control away from these so-called collectives and pulls a lot of that stuff back in-house, which I think would be welcome by a lot of institutions, if only to get a little bit more control over what's going on, because right now it's the Wild West.
I wonder how many more numbers I assume all of them are going to become public, though, right? So we can only guess and hear rumors of like, oh, this is how much Sam Hartman is getting, or Bo Nix is getting, or Michael Penix, like, because they transferred, because they were able to do this shoot for Nike or for Google or whoever. I think, did Riley Leonard just do Gillette, I want to say? So a lot of these places, when you bring it in-house, they're public schools. We know the salaries and buyouts and contracts of all of these public school coaches. And so short of like looking at USC or Duke or Notre Dame or any of these schools, like, we're going to know what a quarterback market truly looks like, at least base layer, if everything is being funneled through public schools. I assume. Maybe there are some privacy concerns that shield some of it, but I think we're going to know a lot more in the way of like how the actual markets work.
I would love to know that degree of specificity around this. Because right now we don't. Right now, a lot of it is assumed. A lot of it is, Cam
Ward's commanding somewhere in this area, but we're not positive. Matt Rule says the growing figure is somewhere between 1 and 2 for a current court. Like, all likely true, but we're going to get specifics, which is wild.
I would love to get more specifics around this. I don't know to what end this would be publicly available, but my guess is that if they're trying to make things more official, generally there's better reporting. And so at least somebody would see those numbers.
Yeah, and who's the Manchester City of FBS football? Is that one of the soccer clubs that has like an ungodly amount of money?
That's
like,
correct.
Is it going to be Oregon, Alabama, Auburn, Ohio State? Who is the one who's just like throwing silly dollars at the portal?
Yeah.
Be great.
So look, this, as you said, this would certainly create a circumstance in which there are haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
The whole system is kind of built around that. And in effect, the proposal asks some of the big power players, what's this worth to you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's this worth to you? You can set what it's worth to you. If you're Ohio State, if you're Texas, if you're Clemson, if you're some of the richer athletic programs out there, what is this worth to you? And put your money where your mouth is. So we'll see. This is, again, a conversation starter. That has been the way this has been phrased across the board. Nobody really expects that this is going to go into effect anytime soon. This is very much a move to try and get out ahead of what Charlie Baker and the NCAA can see getting big.
Yeah.
But,
and this, by the way, this is all like under the umbrella. Sorry to keep extending this, but it's all super fascinating to me. It's all under the umbrella of what every single conference is trying to do right now with every single major program is they're trying to maximize value ahead of the next TV deal, right? Mm-hmm. That's what everybody is constantly doing all of the time. How do we maximize value as a conference ahead of the next time we sign a TV deal? And it's sort of perfectly in line with what every program is like. What are we doing for 2025 though with our recruiting class? There's always like, how are we positioning ourselves for that next thing? And so under that umbrella, that everybody's trying to make as much money as possible all of the time, and that is always going to be through TV right now anyway. It's wild to now see some more equitable propositions here. Proposals. Yeah.
I agree. Look, it's an interesting time. It's only going to get more interesting. Mm-hmm. We'll do our best to stay ahead of this story. We'll bring Matt on at some point. Like I said, I just talked to Matt the other day. We'll bring Matt on here to talk more about where things go next.
Yeah. Agree.
Shall we get to the transfer portal and all things transfer portal-ish?
Please.
Transfer portal. All right. What is going on with the transfer portal? We did a whole show on the portal.
Yeah.
Last Tuesday. A week later, Dan, where do things stand?
In a terrific place. I don't know. It's really interesting. So, okay, the school that I pay closest attention to, Oregon, has, I think, the biggest quarterback commitment so far in Dylan Gabriel, depending on how you feel about Brock Vandegrift in Kentucky. I don't know. There's obviously still huge names. Kyle McCord is being, I think, heavily courted with Julian Fleming by Nebraska, I believe I saw. Yep. The Dylan Gabriel thing is fascinating. He's been a very good, if not like fully able to close in on excellent for a couple of different reasons, health or, being at Oklahoma during a transitionary time. I think he's kind of perfectly set up to have a ton of success in Eugene. They've recruited the line very well. The running back room is deep. The receiver room is super promising. Tight end is very promising. Another interesting recruiting and portal class. I'm positive Oregon is going to probably target another receiver or two. They're likely losing Troy Franklin, their number one guy. I just assume receiver is going to be another priority in the portal for them, as will, probably every position. So I think him coming in as a ready-made, very good to great quarterback, and Oklahoma opinions of him, I think, are absolutely valid. Had a couple of down moments this year. You look at some of those stretches of the Kansas game, but I don't think Oregon could have done better than Dylan Gabriel right now in the portal. So as an Oregon human, I'm pretty pleased with him. I think he's going to put up a lot of yardage in a Big Ten that I don't think is going to offer a lot in the way of offenses that can keep up with the best of Oregon, but will be crazy fun to watch.
Yeah, the Kyle McCord thing's interesting. Kyle McCord, per 24/7, he's got like 100% crystal ball grade on going to Nebraska.
Okay.
And, of course, there's some speculation that maybe Julian Fleming could end up there as well. As you know, Nebraska was in a rough spot at the quarterback position this past season. Part of that could have stemmed from the line, which wasn't very good, but at the same time, they just didn't get much, if anything, from Jeff Sims. They were dealing with backups and Chubba Purdy's, and it was a non-starter on the offensive side of the ball. The defense was not bad, but they need more pop on that offensive side of things. And Kyle McCord would be a decent prize. I mean, he's not moving that much farther west, staying in the same conference. And, if Julian Fleming ends up there as well, at least that's a point of familiarity. So I don't think that's a bad move at all for Nebraska. I think you'll take whatever you can get, and to get McCord will be a nice thing for them. The quarterback market right now is crazy interesting because you're starting to see some of these crystal ball grades go up. Haven't seen much on the Dante Moore front. You mentioned Brock Vandagriff as well. That's an interesting name coming out of Georgia, decides he's going to transfer. But some of the bigger names still out there, right? Cameron Ward still out there. Will Howard still out there. We've heard rumors about these guys. Riley Leonard seems like he's headed to Notre Dame. Have not seen that officially reported anywhere at time of recording, but even guys like Will Rogers, who we've talked about making sense potentially at Washington, DeQuan Finn, an exciting name transferring out of Toledo. I did see that Tyler Van Dyke, where is he headed?
Tyler Van Dyke isn't headed anywhere yet.
I've seen some predictions as to where he could end up going, but Blake Shapen going to Mississippi State.
Yep.
A lot going on. Taylon Green looks like he's going to Arkansas, sort of the late addition to the transfer portal, transferring out of Boise State, going to Arkansas. So some of these names are really starting to get paired up with their eventual destinations. It'll just be interesting to see where things shake out in the very end. The big one, of course, that I think I'm watching is Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, Cam Ward, his name has come up a lot with Ohio State. Certainly they have, Devin Brown, Lincoln, I think it's Kleinholtz was their blue chip last year, and then they've got Aaron Nolan coming in this year. So there are options on the roster, but certainly with how they've recruited receiver, offensive line hasn't been great, but certainly with how they've recruited receiver, you need somebody this year, right? This is not a developmental program. You need somebody to come in this year and be of conference championship winning caliber. So, no, Ohio State's going to be fascinating. I saw Sam Levitt from Michigan State, recent blue chipper, goes to Arizona State. So, at least builds depth there. I heard Jaden Rashada was, unsure about his future, but seems to be sticking with the Sun Devils. So, they have depth with Drew Pine transferring out. It's fascinating. USC, continue.
Where does Dante Moore fall in all this?
He could be going to Oregon as well.
Would that make sense for him to go to Oregon behind Dylan Gabriel?
So some people feel as if he was probably thrust into the action too early at UCLA and would have benefited from sitting and learning and maturing and, getting into a rhythm as a college football player and not just have immediate expectations as the best quarterback recruit in UCLA's modern history to come in and immediately be that savior. And because of injury, he was sort of put on the field pretty early on. And I think really struggled with confidence and turnovers. So the thinking is, and I think, we've seen his name come up with Michigan, and we'll see what happens with J.J. McCarthy, with Miami. Certainly seems like they're active in the portal market at quarterback right now. The thinking with Oregon is Dylan Gabriel's 1 year, and then you get Dante Moore with the ability to take that red shirt-ish year, come in a few games, maybe the postseason, get into a better offense and a better program than where UCLA was last year,
right,
and sort of get the seasoning that he's always needed and be better equipped in a top-tier program to step in and be successful. So it would be a time investment in his future. Oregon, I think, they don't have a blue-chip quarterback or an obvious blue-chip guy in this year's class. They had one guy decommit, and then in 2025 they do. So the timing kind of works out for him to play a year or two after sitting. If he looks at his other options and says, I don't know that that's a place that's set up to sort of step in and succeed immediately,
right,
then the move would be, well, just go where you want to go and have it be at a place that you're comfortable learning. So that would be the thinking.
He was committed to Oregon as well.
He was committed to Oregon for a long time, and Oregon just lost their longtime backup Ty Thompson to the portal. So there is space there. They will have a redshirt freshman this coming year, but there is space to come in and build depth and learn. So that would be the thinking there.
Yeah, I saw on a different note that Trevor Etienne has also thrown his name in the portal.
Big name, yep.
The big name running back for Florida. Florida will be very, very interesting to watch.
Walter Nolan visited Oregon, and I assume is going to visit a couple other places before he makes his decision. Former number 2 overall recruit a couple years ago. So he seems to be a pretty literal and figurative value add to anybody's defensive line. A&M has lost a bunch of guys, a bunch of really good contributors, which is not unusual for a team replacing its coach. But with how they've recruited, these guys are just going to get a lot of attention, a lot of high-profile names out of A&M. Who else?
Yeah, I mean, the other big one that I think I know is new since we recorded last time, Nyland Green, the cornerback for Georgia, has thrown his name in the portal. Currently, per 24/7, the top-rated cornerback that is available, Toriano Pride from Clemson, opted to go with Mizzou as part of his transfers. So Nyland Green's an interesting name. I think could step in and help a lot of folks. I know Penn State was after him pretty hot and heavy on the recruiting trail. So we'll see if that materializes at all. I'm not seeing anything per se that it will, but I know there are a bunch of schools that are very, very interested in what he has to do. So
yeah, the other big one
on that front
from Clemson as well, Andrew Makuba, I believe, rumored to be hot and heavy with Texas, safety from Clemson, and not unexpected, but schools like Washington State and Oregon State are losing a bunch of dudes, especially Oregon State with some young, promising defensive players. Could see them moving on to big places because Trent Bray has done a very nice job identifying defensive players and developing. We saw that especially in the secondary, the 2022 season. So the top end there, Aiden Childs, who was destined to be the next great Oregon State quarterback. He entered the portal after Jonathan Smith leaves, and a lot of steam. Is that what we called it? A lot of steam. With him following Jonathan Smith and his offensive coordinator to Michigan State to fulfill some of that promise, hopefully, for the Spartans.
All right. Well, speaking of transfers, I guess it's not technically the transfer portal. I'm going to play this anyway.
That's okay.
Coaches now.
Yeah.
And a lot of movement on the coaching front, too.
I agree. Willie Fritz, John Sumrall, Manny Diaz.
Manny Diaz going to Duke, yeah.
I think it seems like it'll be a big win for Duke, and a lot of assistants being hired to places with new coaches. I saw Mike Elko's finishing out his staff, I guess, at Texas A&M, filling out his staff. I saw Matt Entz, North Dakota State's head coach, going to stay with North Dakota State for the duration of the FCS playoffs, but will be coaching linebackers and will be an assistant head coach for USC as they attempt to, I wasn't going to say rebuild, but build a defense in LA.
So you kind of alluded to this earlier, and I'm glad you brought up the Matt Entz move. What is USC doing on defense? Because this has been the bone of contention, right? It's not offense. The offense, by and large, is pretty good. But defensively, the 2 years that Lincoln Riley's been there, they haven't done anything on defense. You could argue they got worse this past year. So what is it that they are doing? I saw they named a defensive coordinator. They're obviously doing a linebacker coach now. What is the status of that operation?
They're going to try to get in as many good players as humanly possible in the portal because it's not happening on the high school trail right now for USC. So the first thing is you got to get talent in. It doesn't matter how good your coaches are. You need guys that can beat blocks, that can stand up in coverage, that can tackle in the open field. And USC doesn't have that right now. So they're presumably going to be very aggressive in the portal. It seems like they're going to have a very specific identity that isn't what it was last year with their new coordinator, Danton Lynn, and Matt Entz. I know North Dakota State has seemed more mortal, but has, credentials as a very, very good football coach, and linebacker has been one of many positions of help in coaching and talent-wise at USC. So if the linebackers are filling lanes better, if they know their assignments better, it's going to give USC a better chance against a Big Ten. Honestly, still kind of lacking in offense. We'll see if Nebraska gets better in the portal at quarterback. We'll see if Iowa somehow gets better with a new offensive mind in charge. We'll see if Michigan State and Jonathan Smith, it almost assuredly will. He's been very good on offense wherever he's been, but it could take some time. Penn State's going to be making changes. I don't have USC's schedule in front of me, but a lot of these schools are still built pretty well on the line. And so if all you need to do is push USC back and stay on the field against what USC's defensive roster currently looks like, you can do that. You can absolutely do that. So they need to get much better, and it really is just like they need 30 better players right now.
Yeah, it's a talent thing on some level. I'm interested to see what happens with the Penn State defensive coordinator spot. I think we're probably looking at Anthony Poindexter, who has been on that staff for a while. It seems like there's a lot of steam on him as the heir apparent to what Manny Diaz built over the last couple seasons. There have been rumors about Joe Rossi, but Joe Rossi from Minnesota decided to go to Michigan State to join that Jonathan Smith staff. Elijah Robinson is an interesting name. He's got Penn State roots, but he's going to be the defensive coordinator at Syracuse. He's obviously going to coach the bowl game for Texas A&M before he leaves. So unless James Franklin's able to pull some antics and pry him away from Fran Brown in the new system up at Syracuse, presumably he's going to be off the books as well. Poindexter seems.
By the way, good use of pry, right? Because James Franklin and Brent Pry was an internal hire, right?
That's
at
right.
Defensive coordinator. Who did he take over for? Shoop?
Brent Pry took over for Bob Shoop, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's
a stop. Okay.
Yeah. So I think I think the Poindexter hire will be an interesting one. It would certainly be some degree of continuity and somebody that is probably ready for his shot as well.
It's a great defense to continue. It's a great defense. If the talent continues to be there, be a great moment to continue.
Yeah, if I had a bet on somebody, that'd be the name that I'd bet on. But I'm not privy to any insider info, so don't take that to the bank quite yet. Any other moves on this front that are of interest to you, or anything that you're watching, names, that sort of thing? I'm eagerly awaiting the day when I get the news that Notre Dame has fired Jared Parker.
Oh man,
as offensive coordinator. Although I will admit, given the fact that it's now the second week of December and there hasn't been any news on that front, the only news we've seen on the Notre Dame coaching front is that they hired Mike Brown to be their new wide receiver coach. Remember, they got rid of Chancey Stuckey. They bring down Mike Brown, who was from Wisconsin, presumably one of the up-and-comers in the field. So at least on that front, it seems like there's some steam on getting a good guy to be their wide receiver coach. I, of course, thought that about Chancey Stuckey as well, but for whatever reason, that didn't work out. I cannot believe they have not moved on Jared Parker yet. It is giving me serious agita. I'm not kidding you. I am going to be fit to be tied if they don't make a move with their offensive coordinator spot. And the longer we go without hearing an announcement, the more we just have to start believing that there's not going to be a move. And that bothers me. That bothers me to no end because, I mean, I can just look at the numbers. I could do a whole podcast on that. I won't do a whole podcast on that. I'm just saying something should change because last season what we saw was not good. Just wasn't good objectively.
We'll soon learn just how good of an offensive coordinator Colin Klein is as he makes the move to Texas A&M from Kansas State, because he's had it pretty good at Kansas State in terms of what the line has generally looked like in front of experienced quarterbacks. There's been a lot of continuity at Kansas State, which certainly not a word you'd use to describe what's happening at Texas A&M right now.
No,
hopefully for the better, but I think that's a high ceiling move for Texas A&M. I mentioned Ryan Gunderson is the name that I think is moving to Michigan State with Jonathan Smith at offensive coordinator. Pitt hired Cade Bell from Western Carolina to take over that offense. Has been a very good offense for Western Carolina. And excuse me, when I said Ryan Gunderson is at Oregon State, it is Brian Lindgren at Michigan State coming over.
Right. That's right.
Jake Spavital makes the move from Cal to Baylor, who parted ways with Jeff Grimes, who I think is moving over to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Where's Jeff Grimes heading? There's too many names, Ty. Excuse me, Kansas and Jeff Grimes. See, right. I knew it was Kansas. I didn't know. I thought it was Arkansas. Otherwise, I saw Andy Avalos taking over likely at TCU for Joe Gillespie, who was let go by Sonny Dykes. I think that's an interesting one. Joe Rossi, whose name came up with Penn State, going to Michigan State as well. So he comes over from Minnesota. So a lot of familiarity, at least with the old Big Ten, not necessarily with the new Big Ten. And I don't know. Otherwise, I think Clark Lee is taking over the Vanderbilt defense. Did I see that?
The Jake Spavital thing at Baylor, you said, is interesting. I don't know how that fits Baylor.
He's the new Jim Chaney. He's an offensive consultant.
I know, I get it. But he runs a very fast system. It seems almost counter to what Baylor's been doing the last couple of years. And
that's a good thing, Ty. That's a very good thing.
It is a good thing. I just wonder if there's personnel in place to run that system.
Sure. Look, Cal hasn't had a ton of personnel, and Jake Spavital has, definitely succeeded in his, return year to Berkeley. I
don't know. That move to me is a bit of a head scratcher.
What about Willie Fritz to Houston?
I mean,
all he does is win.
You mentioned it before.
All he does is win. I love that for Houston. I really, really do. Plus, having the geographic familiarity in New Orleans, East Texas. He's not young. I think he's in his early 60s. But I love it. In a changing Big 12, to have somebody who exclusively wins, I love the move. By the way, I was texting with a friend of ours who went to TCU, and he asked me about Andy Avalos, and that just made me look at the TCU 2024 schedule. Softer than a baby's bottom, Tie.
Oh yeah.
Pull up the 2024 TCU schedule. It is extraordinary.
Okay.
Look at what TCU. If TCU is something, which I don't know, maybe they're
Colorado. Oh no, wait, hold on. That's 2020.
2024.
Okay. 2024. Here we go. At Stanford, at SMU, at Baylor. These are dates to be announced.
Yeah.
So these aren't back to back to back or anything like that. But these are the games. So at Stanford, at SMU, at Baylor, at Cincinnati. Okay. At Kansas, home against Arizona, home against Tech. Home against Houston, Oklahoma State, UCF, and Utah, or on the road at Utah. They go 11-1 if they're any good.
I mean, look, somebody could go 11-1. I don't know if TCU is, but in terms of lack of heavy hitting offenses, pretty great. On first look, we're very early in the portal cycle. We have no idea what these rosters and coaching staffs will ultimately look like, but pretty ideal. This kind of seems like, got to get it done this year, Sonny, or when are you? Because year one was great, but those weren't your guys. That was a tougher conference that you were still able to come out of. And if you're not doing it against this schedule, I think there's some pressure because this is a great schedule.
This is the kind of schedule that you pick via a snake draft.
Yes.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
I love this.
How did this person get away with this draft?
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
either that or an auto selection, but wow, this is ideal. Look, I mean, going to Utah is not a picnic.
No, but their offense
going
this
to
year
Kansas could be weird. Kansas will probably be pretty good. And Arizona at home, that's a tough game, but
rather have them at home. Yeah.
Are those the three toughest games? Oklahoma State probably would like to have a word, but nonetheless, wow, that's extremely workable for TCU. Sort of no excuse.
Great. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, those are, some of the items that have been of interest, and we'll see if there are new surprise entrants into the portal or opt-outs. I saw Sam Hartman's not playing in the Sun Bowl.
Right.
I don't know. It's a wild season, Ty. And by the way, in 9 days, we have the early signing period for the class of 2024. All in that.
Crazy.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah, the Sam Hartman opt-out, I think, makes the Sun Bowl a veritable mess. It's just a mess. Nobody's playing in that game.
See, the Sun Bowl to me is always must-watch because there is just something a little bit chaotic. And,
it's always chaotic, yeah.
Just representative of the good of bowl season about the Sun Bowl.
The Sun Bowl is going to be a mess. You got to watch that one.
Yep.
We will go through, I think, on the Thursday episode, and we'll talk in a little bit more detail about some of the other opt-outs. I don't know if there are any other opt-outs on the level of Sam Hartman that are of interest to you. I think the Talon Green one, because he entered the transfer portal, is, and we talked about that a moment ago, that is significant if you're looking at that Boise State bowl game trying to figure out who do you want to pick. I'm going to go the other direction now. I was on Boise. I'm going the other direction now.
Okay.
PlayWinterWonders.com is how you get in the bowl pool. Again, it's free to play. Everybody's welcome. Like I said, invite your friends, your family, your text threads, your office, your church group, whatever you're into. Whatever you're into.
If you went to high school with somebody who is a current A-list actor or actress or musician, I don't know. This is a great way to connect. PlayWinterWonders.com.
So we didn't tag Golick yet.
Oh, yeah, we have to. Sure.
We're going to get him in. But give me a list of 3 college football or just sports media personalities that we should tag as soon as we get done with this episode to try and get them in the bowl pool.
Trajan Langdon, Tony Blair.
Is Tony Blair in college football media?
Edward James Olmos.
Okay.
No. College football media? I don't know. Anybody. Jess Matana? That's too much Notre Dame already with Michael Jr. No, we can. We love Jess. Anybody you want? Nicole, Bruce, Ari, Andy,
all right.
Matt Brown. Both Matt Browns.
Well, you get both Matt Browns in.
Yeah, 2 for 1.
All right. We'll just send a tag out to everybody. Why
Yeah.
not? All right. Look. So that's your cue. PlayWinterWonders.com. Get in the bowl pool.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited about it. Top 11 finishers get prizes. It's free to play. It's the only additional promo I will give you on this episode. Get in on the bowl pool. It'll be fun, I promise. A lot to play for. The biggest slate of prizes we've ever offered. Get in now. Reballers.com. I haven't mentioned that yet. That is our Patreon where you can go in for the support the show, ad-free episodes, bonus content, things like that. We're going to be talking more about that on Thursday. But Discord is still, of course, raging.
Yeah.
Given the fact that we've got the closest ever Heisman balloting. We've got crazy coaching movement. We've got crazy portal movement. We've got an early signing period coming up, and bowl season starts this weekend. A lot going on right now.
And you know what? Here on this new segment, Ty and I are each going to recommend a movie. Ty, we both watched a movie in the last few days. You have a little indie that you watched with Kate that you wanted to sort of bring to the surface and let people know about.
It was pretty
Oppenheimer
good.
was
pretty good.
You really liked it a lot, right?
Oh, I loved it. Speaking of things that we love.
Some players are good. Some are great. And some are just dudes. Welcome to Dude Alert, presented by Pristine Auction.
You know, just because the season's over doesn't mean that the dude alerts have to stop.
No, that's true. Should we retire some dudes? Should we use this opportunity to retire a couple of dudes from the season? That we're just like, look, the dude status of this person is undeniable. And
let's
Let's
go 3 dudes that we need to retire.
That are coming back.
They're coming back.
They have to come back, right? Yeah.
They got to come back. They're going to be, they're going to be playing again on the college level, but we can't use them again if we do dude alerts again next year.
Because I think the dude alert is to raise awareness, right?
I think so.
Of excellence. And so I think the awareness is like Jalen Milroe is retired.
Can we agree on that one? That was the first name that I thought of.
Okay.
We should retire the dude jersey of Jalen Milroe because
I agree.
He needs no more awareness. The awareness is already there for Jalen Milroe. There's a pretty strong case to be made that he's one of like the 5 Heisman frontrunners next season. Mm-hmm. So that guy, I think we retire Jalen Milroe. I think I agree with you on that one. Here's another name.
Please.
You're going to hate me for this. Tyro McMillan.
I think that's fine. I think that's a worthy retirement. He'll be mentioned.
T-Mac should be mentioned. We're not going to stop talking about Tyro McMillan.
Yeah.
But Tyro McMillan's a awesome receiver for Arizona.
Yeah. Best returning receiver in America. Yeah.
I think that's fair. So I'll throw him out there. Do you have any other names that you'd like to retire?
Yeah, Ollie Gordon. How about that?
Well,
or do you think his status is not cemented because it was more of like the final half of the season is when he really exploded?
And he's also transferring now, too.
Is he?
He's transferring.
I don't think he is.
He's transferring.
I think that was a fake account, Ty. You can fact check this. I think it was a fake On3 account, by the way, if you make a fake On3 Twitter account, what a winner you must be. What an absolute life winner you must be to make an On3
Did I get got by that?
I think you got.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry to have to tell you on the show. Damn. But yeah, I believe you got.
All right, so maybe Ollie Gordon can stay just because of that.
Yeah.
Because I apparently need more awareness around Ollie Gordon. Any other names here that we should throw in? Like,
what about Quinshaw Judkins? I think that's sort of self-evident right now.
yeah. I think we'll go Quinshaw Judkins.
His name
too.
wasn't as big this year, but I think it's pretty reasonable to say, like, yeah, he's just a dude. We don't have to, like, remind people. They know it.
Quinshaw Judkins. All right. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with retiring Quinshaw Judkins just because, I don't know. I feel like we've talked a lot about him in the last 2 years. And
Yeah,
he's
of
always
course we have.
He's always on the list.
Mm-hmm.
He's just always on the list. All right, Dan.
I'm good with that. And I guess depending on what happens with J.J. McCarthy, if he decides to come back or not, we can just say, like, hey, if he's back, we know he's a dude.
J.J. McCarthy, yeah. If J.J. McCarthy ends up coming back, we can't use him again.
Yeah. We don't need to interrupt people's late night Saturdays to be like, hey, you know who else is good? J.J. McCarthy. No, we know. He's good. That's all.
We gave out bronze, silver, and golden goblets the last couple weeks for our dude alerts. This year, you're gonna have to make some new graphics to retire their jersey.
Put the numbers in the rafters. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
We'll hang
okay.
them in the rafters. Pristine Auction, by the way, your ultimate destination for signed sports memorabilia. That means you can get signed gear from all of these dudes. Go out to pristineauction.com, type in their damn names, see what's available. It's an awesome site. Awesome site. Bids start at $1. Head on out to pristineauction.com. Use the code SOLID for $10 off your first win.
I laughed really hard at the Please Don't Destroy movie, by the way, last night. I don't watch
Please
movies
don't.
that often. That's my movie recommendation. It's like The Hunt for Treasure at Foggy Mountain or something. It's on Peacock. It was hilariously funny.
Hilariously funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, last but certainly not least, we appreciate everybody who has been going out there. They've been listening to me. There is still work left to do, but the reviews are starting to roll in, baby.
Trickle.
They're starting to roll in out at our podcast show page on Apple Podcasts. I know, you know, we all know. I see the numbers. I know the thousands upon thousands of people. And I'm not just making that up. We've been doing this for 15 plus years now. There are thousands upon thousands of people who listen to this show, and most of you have not left a rating or a review yet. This is our just kind urging that you can help us by going out there and leaving us a star rating or a review. So I'm going to give
a great star rating and a great review this holiday season to warm Ty's heart.
I am going to get through all of these this season. I'm going through all of them. All right. We got a lot of content that we still have to do. So I'm going through all of these. If you leave a review, I'm going to read it at some point, even if I have to do multiples on any one show. So please leave the 5-star review. Be nice. Okay. Be nice. I might even read some 4 stars.
I'll take it. I'll take
it. Well, whatever. Just leave the review. We appreciate it. New 32Z. The go-to CFB podcast. Favorite college football podcast for the past 3+ years. Listen to nearly every episode since I started. Boom! Boom! You're on the show. Thank you. And you get the sound effect. Why not?
Yeah.
Boom! That easy.
Love it. Thank you.
Wherever you get your podcasts, go out, leave a star rating or review. We appreciate it.
That's all I have, Ty.
That's all I got, Dan. Appreciate everybody hanging with us here through the off season. Bowl season starts up this week. You know where to go. Play Winter Wonders if you want to get in on all of the action. For that guy over there, my good friend Dan Rubenstein. Of course, for my good friend New 32Z, who left us a sparkling review. For myself, Ty Hildebrand, thanks again for downloading, for listening, for supporting.